Let me come to you very briefly, really, because you mentioned something about the great Houphouët-Boigny, the founding president of the Ivory Coast, or Côte d'Ivoire. But there are a lot of people who will say, look, if there are any problems that Africa, in fact, is experiencing right now, these are consequences of people like Houphouët-Boigny, a man who was in power for decades, never even chose a successor, to the extent that an Ivory Coast that at one time, frankly, was being praised to be one of the more developed countries in sub-Saharan Africa. You know the rest of the story.
Absolutely.
You even have a former president of Ivory Coast right now at The Hague.
All right. Well, Shaka, in all fairness, I think that if you put things back historically into perspective, yes, I mean, there is, myself included, I was one of the very de facto of Houphouët-Boigny, which means I think it was at the core of many instrumentalization of many things that happen in the political scene in Africa. However, I think even when you think things from a Francophone Africa perspective, yes, he failed on...
A man who built a huge Catholic church.
Well, those are facts, but he also built a lot of infrastructure.
An area that is predominantly Muslim. I mean, really.
No, but
this is also a man, let's face it, who pretty much obviously built the economy, so to speak, and Abidjan, the commercial capital. But yet, this man was not able to choose a successor, to the extent that there are people who say, no matter how much success you have had, if you cannot choose a successor, in fact, it equals to failure.
Absolutely, Shaka. But also, you know, there's a nuance, okay? Africans, we tend to want leaders that are perfect right away. No leader, as a matter of fact, no man's ever going to be perfect. What you have to do, you have to be fair and look across the board in state and age in which they have to, actually led, and you make that assessment. So what I'm saying is, Houphouët-Boigny a model for me or for the future of Africa? Absolutely not. But what I was trying to point out was that, and I think you can research this video, Shaka. He did this comment in the presence of Mobutu and Mitterrand. He talked in length about what his vision of what he was going to do for Africa was. I was pretty moved by that.
Houphouët-Boigny?
Yes.
Or what he was going to do for Houphouët-Boigny and his family and his friends.
If I can jump in here, Shaka, this is one thing. I like people that think progressively. You got to be progressive in a way of thinking. Now, we cannot just sit here and blame everything on predecessors. We can't just sit here and say, oh, Houphouët-Boigny created the issues that we're living in today. Now, how many presidents has been after Houphouët-Boigny? What can they not fix the problem? Right? The same people that are voting for Houphouët-Boigny are the same people going to vote for the next person who's coming along. If the mindset is not changed, then it has nothing to do with the predecessor, because the next person that comes along is supposed to do better. That's how I see things, and you have to encourage betterment.
So if I get you correctly, really, you think what is needed, at least among the African people, are fundamental changes, both in attitudes and in mindsets.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And Shaka, let me add something here, and I'm going to give it to you. It's in case of Central African Republic. There's something I talk about all 3 times I was here with you. I talk about the lack of a proposed society framework, okay, which in French we call it projet de société, which is missing when all politics approach in Africa. I tell you, guess what? And to the credit of all of our political parties in Central Africa, this time around, all of them presented a society framework.
All of them?
Yes.
Let's begin with, first of all, the 2 candidates are both former prime ministers.
That is correct.
One of them, in fact, used to be, he's like a manager or a banker. He used to be
governor.
In charge, of course. He served under President Ange Felix Patasse. That is Anicet Georges Dorogele.
Correct.
He comes from very strong management skills. And the other one is a former academic and mathematician. That one, of course, also served, I think he served under same man, Patasse?
That is correct.
Yeah. So who do you think
he served on the Bouzizi.
under
Bozize,
Bozize,
Touadera
you're
served
right,
under
yeah.
Bozize, that is correct.
Who do you think probably would be the best candidate really to lead the Central African Republic out of its problems right now? When you look at these two guys.
Well, Shaka, I said this before. I said this when I was interviewed privately by Mariama, and I'm going to say this again. Right now, where we stand as a country, it's about the plan. The plan that they have, the society framework that they're proposing. What are they proposing? Before I came to this interview today, I read both of their society framework plan.
Right.
Both of them have some plus and minuses. And to his credit, Mr. Dolegate, every time that he came to the United States, he actually reached out to me personally.
Really?
Yeah, when I was the leader of our community. And I made suggestions to him on the angles such as youth and employment, and also creating an environment for a private sector, because you know I'm a private sector-minded person.
Right.
And to my surprise, honestly, I saw him making those edits in his plan, which just tells me what? This is someone that's listened. This is all we need. Whether it's him or Mr. Touadera that comes out of this runoff, all Central African, we need to put all of our affiliation and to the side, get on on board, and make something happen out of this country. This is what matters at this point.
Yves, Kongolo, what about you?
Well,
Do you agree with your colleague
to an extent.
about having a platform,
Absolutely.
having a manifesto?
I do believe in that one. But
What about people who say that when politicians are running for office, they campaign in poetry? But when it comes to doing the business of governance, that one, they do it in prose.
correct. I think the stage where Central Africa is right now, I don't think it is good for the country to talk down, condescend, or discredit a candidate at this point. I don't think that's the right thing to do. Right. Now, if I have to give advice to anybody who wants to go vote, they need to look at track records. Right. Who has the best track records and what has it done for the country, as opposed to the other one, right? Now, we have Anise Dolegate. He's experienced, well-rounded. He led different agencies and he was a prime minister for a minute. Now, his contender is, his background was just in school, teaching science and math.
Mathematics.
So mathematics.
Yeah.
So,
and the vice chancellor, in fact, of the University of Bangui.
Absolutely. But what is the experience that comes behind it?
Yes.
Is he able to lead a country?
He was the prime minister briefly.
Can he even lead? Well, but he was a prime minister for how long?
About 5 years?
5 years.
Yeah, about 5 years.
But was he able to lead? That's the problem. The issue is we got to put the right person at the right place.
The problem is that sometimes when you talk to some of these prime ministers in countries, frankly, where you have the presidential system, they tell you that they had no executive powers. They were serving at the discretion of the president.
Absolutely.
Who has all the powers.
But that's what I was going to mention.
Well, that's what the issue comes, though. That's what the issue comes. In Africa, Central Africa, let me not talk about everybody. In Central Africa, if Gabino is president, then his family, cousins, people that he knows are going to come and work for him. It doesn't matter what their experience is or what the level of education is, right? So to be a minister back in the days, I remember that you have to earn it.
Right.
It's not just given.
Back in the days, which days?
Well, I'm talking about
the era
we grew up in the 80s, 90s. I remember that you have to earn it. If you don't earn the spot, you're not going to be there.
That's a Dako, isn't it?
That's calling by a Dako between that. Now, in that time, I'm not saying that during these days there were not any favoritism, so on and so forth. Right. That existed. Right. But the majority of the people that were put in place were competent. They were able to do the job. They were able to do their job.
Right. So what happened?
Well, Shaka, if I may just add my little 2 cents here to the point that Yves has a solid point, okay? But here's also what Central African Republic people now remember about Touadera. The little time that he was prime minister, the public servant always got paid, okay? And also, like I told you, I read his society framework proposal. is talking about ethics.
Ethics.
What Yves talk about ethics is a big issue. Ethics, corruption,
Ethics
and nepotism.
Ethics and character.
Yeah, ethic and character. He has made that one of his key point, which to me I think it's critical to restore that into the framework of the mindset of Central African people. I mean, the little that we know during our time growing up is that no matter what, I mean, authorities were authorities. There was a benchmark of excellence in things that you do. There were times that we had we were the first French-speaking country to achieve autonomous alimentation, which autosuffisance alimentaire. At the time,
what does that mean?
It means that it's a country that can self-sustain feeding them the people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those are things that they were flagship.
Your country is enormously rich.
Yeah.
You have incredible resources, both natural and human. You have very few people, really.
That's true.
But how
622
come you are
kilometers.
poor?
Yeah.
How come your people are very poor?
Well, this is what I heard before, and I'm gonna say that people live in poor, but they die rich because they're buried on the ground, and they have all the resources. Now, my thing is, there is not a human development in the country. Because if you develop the people,
right,
the resources that we have is just a tip of iceberg. Right. So just take an example from the U.S. here. I guarantee, this is not a guarantee, we know for a fact that African countries may have more resources that people have here in the U.S., but they have the human capital to think.
Now, what about Africa? What about the Central African Republic? And what about the changing demographics? Your generation. I mean, let's face it, you have no excuse, frankly, because the intellectual balance of power has been shifting in your favor. Why can't you take advantage of that and deliver to your societies?
Now, when you say a balance to our favor,
the intellectual balance of power, you now have unfettered access to knowledge and information. Unlike, for example, our ancestors, really. You remember that when Africa was being divided among the Europeans, around the 1884-85, in Berlin, under Bismarck, there was not a single African representation on that huge chair.
Well, that's the problem. The problem is there's a social inequality in the country. Now, if you have a small portion of the country that are rich and can afford to send the kids overseas, then this is just what you can see. How about the kids in the village? How about the kids in the backbone of the country? What can we do to get these people out to the city and send them overseas and pay them and give them grants for school and allow them to have same opportunity as we had?
So you come up with programs, frankly, that are very appropriate
to
their situation.